Namaskar. I am Pranali Prakash Waingankar. I was a student of Sanskrit department from 2002 to 2004, and those days have always been memorable for me because of my teachers and classmates. Whatever work I am doing now, it is only because of Bakre madam, Mahulikar madam and Narsai madam who always encouraged me during my MA. I am sincerely grateful to all these teachers and hearty congratulations to the Sanskrit department on completing 60 glorious years. I would like to extend my thanks to the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai and its head, Dr. Shakuntala Gavde Madam, for giving me the opportunity to participate in this prestigious lecture series. Thank you. My topic is entrance into the poetic world of Ashvagosha. Ashvagosha is an important poet in both classical and Buddhist Sanskrit literature. Unfortunately, many of his works were not preserved due to the decline of Buddhism in India. As a result, Ashvagosha's works were forgotten in India until modern scholars discovered manuscripts in Nepal in the late 19th and 20th centuries. In fact, we first learned about Ashvagosha in 1892 when Silva Levi published the first chapter of Buddha Charitam. Only Saundarananda is complete in Sanskrit, while his other works are only partially preserved or entirely lost. It is evident from various references and citations that his works were known for scholars for many centuries. About his life, it is difficult to ascertain much about the life of Ashvagosha as per the tradition of ancient Indian authors. However, the colophon of the Saundarananda do offer some details about him. आर्य सुवर्णाक्षि पुत्रस्य साकेतकस्य भिक्षोर आचार्य बदंत अश्वघोषस्य महाकवेर महावादिनः कृतिरियम्. With this statement, we can say that Ashvagosha was the son of Suvarnakshi. Then he was a native of Saketa, nowadays Ayodhya. He was a Buddhist monk, great poet and a great preacher. While some Latin traditions suggest that he was a Brahman, although it is not stated in the colophons, it is generally accepted by modern scholars in light of the detailed knowledge of Vedic and Puranic literature and traditions that he knows, that he shows in his works. He was a follower of the Sarvastivada school of Buddhism and in his youth and later he became a Mahayana practitioner. According to Tibetan tradition, Ashvagosha was an excellent musician who composed his own music. He traveled with a band of singers to markets and played and sang songs about the vanity of existence, which attracted large crowds. Why he named as Ashvagosha? He may have been named Ashvagosha because horses neighed during his birth or because horses listened intently to his sermons without eating. About the Ashvagosha's date, Ashvagosha's exact date is not known, but most scholars place him in the 1st or 2nd century CE because he is associated with Kanishka, the great Kushan emperor who probably ruled in or around the 2nd quarter of the 2nd century CE. A 2nd century date is supported also also by the Central Asian fragments of Ashvagosha's dramatic work, which on paleographic grounds seem to date from around the time of Kanishka or his successor Huvishka. Ashvagosha received great fame during his time and after also. Shenzhen, a Chinese monk, recorded that Ashvagosha, along with Deva, Nagarjuna and Kumaralabdha, were the four great scholars who illuminated the world. The Tibetan biographer of Ashvagosha described him as an expert who could solve any question and reject any false accusation. He was known to overcome his opponents as early as a strong wind breaks rotten trees. When we actually enter into the poetic world of Ashvagosha, what happens? There is no doubt that Ashvagosha is the author of two Mahakavyas, Buddhacharita and Saundarananda, and a play, Shariputra Prakaran. Unfortunately, we have only fragments left of that play. His Mahakavyas are considered to be masterpieces of both Sanskrit poetry and Buddhist literature. It is believed that Ashvagosha may have written at least one more play, the Rashtrapala Nataka, but unfortunately it has been lost. Some works attributed to him means his works are highly regarded in the Buddhist tradition, but some texts attributed to him such as Vajrasuchi, Mahayana Shraddhotpada Shastra, Sutralankar, Gandi Stotra, Nairatmya Pariprucha are not considered to be his authentic works by Buddhist scholars. These texts differ in style, content and doctrine from his authentic works. In the Tanjore, which contains translated works, Tanjore is one of the part of Tibetan canon. Tibetan masters gathered around 4,000 titles of works composed by Indian masters in Tanjore, including several attributed to Ashvagosha. It is worth noting that famous names are often ascribed to anonymous works to enhance their literary value or to place them in a certain literary tradition. For other works, it may be happen like this situation. Then next is Buddhacharita. Buddhacharita is a text that details the life of Buddha, consisting of 28 cantos. It covers the period from his birth to his Mahaparinirvana. This text is considered to be the most popular because of its subject matter and has been translated into Chinese and Tibetan. Ashvagosha drew material from the biographical section of Vinaya, such as Bodhikatha, and later from Mahaparinirvana Sutra to create the Buddhacharita. B.C. Law claimed that it is based either on Lalita Vistara or on the same materials. According to A.K. Warder, the Buddhacharita Mahakavya can be divided into 4 sections, each consisting of 7 cantos. These sections deal with the Buddha's birth and youth, his search for enlightenment, his teachings and conversions, and finally his latter life and Mahaparinirvana. About the textual history of Buddha Charita, the Buddha Charita is first edited by E.C. Covell in 1893. He based um, his edition based on three incomplete Nepalese manuscripts. In 1935, E. H. Johnston produced a standard edition of the text based on much older Nepalese manuscripts dated around 1300 CE. However, the standard edition is also incomplete as it abruptly ends in the middle of the 14th out of 28 cantos. The missing contents from Sanskrit have been restored from Tibetan and Chinese translations, which make up the 28 cantos. It's important to note that only the first 13 cantos are old and authentic. The next 4 cantos were completed by Amrutananda, a Newar scholar, at the beginning of the 19th century. As of today, a complete version of Buddha Charita in Sanskrit has not been obtained yet. The Buddha Charita received great fame at ancient period. The Buddha Charita was a popular text in ancient India and Southeast Asia even after 5 or 6 centuries since its original composition. Yi Jing, a Chinese traveler, mentioned in his travelogue that the book was widely read and sung throughout the 5 divisions of India and the countries of the Southern Sea. He also said that reading the book was considered meritorious because it contains noble doctrines given in a concise form. During Yi Jing's visit to the Sri Vijaya dynasty in Sri Bhoga, Yi Jing observed that the study of the Buddha Charita was an everyday part of the life of the Buddhist monasteries. The Buddha Charita was also popular in Central Asia, where fragments of a reworking of the poem in mixed verse and prose were found. According to Keith, the Buddha Charita remains unparalleled in depicting the life of the Buddha. Next is Saundarananda. Saundarananda consists of 18 cantos. The main theme of Saundarananda is the story of how the Buddha converted forcefully his half-brother Nanda, who was attached to worldly pleasures, especially to his beautiful wife Sundari, and he how he ultimately achieved enlightenment. Saundarananda is the only work of Ashvagosha that remains completely in its original Sanskrit form. The story of Nanda's conversion can also be found in other Buddhist texts such as Pali Udana, the Udana Atthakatha means commentary on Udana, the commentary on Dhammapada, the Sangamavachara Jatak commentary, and Sundari Nandavadana in the Bodhisattvavadana Kalpalata. Saundarananda means influence of Saundarananda means Saundarananda text influence in modern days also. In 1963, Mohan Rakesh wrote a drama called Laharon Ke Rajahans in Hindi based on Saundarananda. It highlights the struggle. It highlights the struggle between materialistic and spiritual life. Mohan Rakesh has taken this particular Nanda and Sundari story and tried to universalize it in a way that Nanda is timeless every man and Sundari is every woman. This relationship presents the man-woman relationship in general. The next work is Shariputra Prakarana. The drama Shariputra Prakarana is a play consisting of 9 acts that narrate the story of the conversion of Shariputra and Maudgalyayan, who were the Buddha's foremost disciples. The story is based on the Mahavagga of Vinaya Pitak. It is preserved only in the form of fragments of 2 manuscripts found in Kizil in Central Asia, published by Luders in 1911. According to Richard Salomon, it is believed that Ashvagosha's dramas were still being performed in the monasteries of Central Asia. There may be one or more plays written by Ashvagosha that were lost in India. But now we have authentic samples from the Central Asian tradition. Fortunately, a manuscript colophon has survived, which provides the titles Shariputra Prakarana and alternate name is Sharadvati Putra Prakarana, as well as the author's name Ashvagosha, son of Suvarnakshi. One of the manuscripts is dated back to the Kushana period on paleographic grounds, which confirms it is the work of Ashvagosha. According to Levi, Ashvagosha wrote a lyrical drama about the legends of Rashtrapala. However, there are references to a lost Rashtrapala Nataka by Ashvagosha in Dharmakirti's Vadanyaya and other places. Then, now I want to talk about Tridandamala. And I whatever will tell about Tridandamala, it is based on the lectures delivered by Professor Hartmann in our department under the Kensei Visiting Professorship Program. Few research articles are also published by Hartmann, Professor Hartmann, then Kozunabu Matsuda and other scholars, and it is available on online platform. About Tridandamala, Kozunobu Matsuda and Professor Hartmann are currently working on a lengthy Sanskrit manuscript called the Tridandamala. The text, which is ascribed to Ashvagosha, in its colophon consists of 40 chapters. Each chapter begins with a triad of verses of homage to the 3 jewels, means Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, followed by 40 canonical sutras that form the core of each chapter. The sutras are quoted in full length. The Tridandamala also contains over 330 stanzas of ample quotations from the Buddha Charita and the Saundarananda, with more than 120 of them coming from the latter half of the Buddha Charita, which is lost from its Sanskrit original. Notably, the text includes a total of 58 verses from chapter 15 of the Buddha Charita, and verses 62 to 78 of the Buddha Charita are quoted in chapter 16. Overall, Tridandamala is an incredible source of lost textual material. The Tridandamala contains sutra texts that are taken from the Mula Sarvastivadin's canon. It is a ritualistic text that is focused on practice. Each of the 40 chapters starts with homage verses for the Triratna, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, based on based on scholars' analysis of the manuscript. It appears that the Tridandamala served as a handbook for monks and possibly lay people to reference during rituals. Each of the 40 chapters likely had a specific ritual purpose. According to the Mula Sarvastivad Vinaya, the text is to be recited during the rites for a deceased monk. There is an extremely close connection between the Tridandamala and the works known under Ashvagosha's name. Therefore, the current study on Tridandamala is play therefore, the current study on Tridandamala play a vital role with regard to the works of Ashvagosha. Then, we seen in the colophon of the Saundarananda, Ashvagosha was a monk. He was a preacher. So why he adopted Kavya style for his works? So he explained it in the colophons of the his works. At the end of the Sundarananda, Ashvagosha clearly mentions that he did not write the poem simply for the purpose of creating poetry. In this work, the form of poetry takes a backseat to the more important goal of conveying the ultimate truth about salvation and tranquility to an audience that may have other interests. He used the Kavya style to make it more appealing, much like adding something sweet to bitter medicine to make it easier to swallow. This is the second last verse of Sundarananda, where he mentioned that the purpose why he chose the Kavya style for his um, composition. And this is the last verse of the Sundarananda. So the fine and also in the Buddha Charita also, the final verse of the Buddha Charita, which is preserved only in Tibetan and Chinese translation, declares that the poem has been composed for the benefit and happiness of all people. It was not created to showcase the author's learning or skill in poetry. So he cleared his purpose in both colophons. Ashvagosha's intended audience for his work was the sophisticated class who were well versed in Sanskrit, and his aim was to present Buddhism in attractive and accessible form to them. Therefore, he chose Kavya style and the classical Sanskrit language for his compositions. Then about language of his works. Ashvagosha used in his works high classical Sanskrit but with distinctly Buddhist flavor. Means he used high classical Sanskrit language in his works, but the vocabulary, many Buddhist technical terms such as Upanishad, meaning in the Buddhist context meaning its cause, or Pratyaya, meaning its secondary cause. So Buddhist technical terms he used in his compositions, and also he used Buddhist idioms such as Adarshana, Pratimandita, etc. He used some expressions, for example, Yena Shramas Tena, means Yena Tena construction conforms to the Pali idiom Yena Bhagava Tena. So Yena Tena construction is frequently occurred in Buddhist texts, Pali as well as Buddhist Sanskrit. So he used high classical Sanskrit. So Ashvagosha used Buddhist, means he used classical Sanskrit with Buddhist favor. So when we read his works, when we study his works, we know that Ashvagosha was well versed in Sanskrit grammar. He employed 12 forms of past perfect in one verse beautifully. Means Rurodh Mamlav Virurava Jaglav Babhrama Tasthav Vilalapa Dadhyav Chakara Rosham Vichakara Malyam Chakarta Vaktram Vichakarsha Vastram. So here he used 12 forms of lit lakar. So in this upama, the last charana is so nishchayannapi yayavna tasthav turam sturangeshva iva rajahamsa. So here in this verse, Nanda is compared with swan, like swan pushing forwards against the waves. Like that, Nanda was not able to going or nor staying there. When he when Buddha gave bowl in his hand. So here Nanda is compared with swan. Next is Rupak. Here the example from Buddha Charita. Here in the Kshama Shipho Dhairya Vigada Moolas Charita Pushpaha Smriti Buddhi Shakha. In this shloka, Ashvagosha used metaphor very correctly, and here wisdom is itself tree, means wisdom jnana is compared with droma, and there is no difference between jnana and droma, knowledge and tree. Then about anuprasa, there are several examples of anuprasa. One of the example from Sundarananda, that sa padma ragam vasanam vasana pad, padmanana padmadala yatakshi. So in this shloka, in this verse, the syllable pa, sa, ma are repeated. So he used, means there are only some examples of upama, rupak, means I only take sample of upama, rupak and anuprasa. So I want to take about this, means that topic, imitation by Kalidasa. Kalidasa is a great admirer of Ashvagosha. Means he follows Kalidasa follows Ashvagosha in many manners. There are in secondary books there are many examples or description about how there is similarities between Ashvagosha and Kalidasa. So here I want to pay attention on this verse particular. Um Kalidas follow some expressions from of Ashvagosha. For example, here the famous verse from Kumarasambhav, that Margachala Vyati, the famous verse from Kumarasambhav, Margachala Vyatikara Kuliteva Sindhu Shailadhiraja Tanayana Yayauna Tastho. All of you remember that when after taken the exam of Parvati, Lord Shiva came in front of her in his original form. At that time, what was the condition of Parvati? Parvati is totally amazed. So what was the condition of Parvati is described in this verse, and the famous phrase is Nayayavna Tastho. Means after seeing the Shiva in real form, he cannot go or not able to stay there. This Nayayavna Tastho phrase, he means Kalidasa, this phrase Kalidasa took from Ashvagosha. In Saundarananda, there is a famous shloka that so nishchayannapi yayavnatastho turas tarangeshwa ivarajahamsah. So here in the Upama I have already given this example that Nanda is compared with swan. When Buddha gave begging bowl to hand over to Nanda, at that time Nanda is not want to stay there, or he was not able to go away from there. So his condition is like swan. So the famous Nayayavna Tastho, this phrase he brought from Ashvagosha. Then Ashvagosha employed in his works various meters. He used Anushtup, Upajati abundantly in his works. And when we study the metrics, there are three types of metrics: Samavritta, Ardha Samavritta and Vishamavritta. He used all three types of meters in his works. For example, Samavritta means Shikharini, Sharabha, Suvadana, Kusumita, Lata, Vellita. These Samavrittas he used in Buddha Charita Saundarananda. Then Ardha Samavrittas are there, Opachandasika, Aparavaktra, Pushpitagra in his works. And then Vishamavritta like Udgata and Upasthita Prachupita. For example, about the Sharabha meter, the meter Sharabha is otherwise unknown except its description in the Natya Shastra. And the Ashvagosha Ashvagosha's use of Udgata and Upasthita Prachopita proves his great skill in the handling of difficult meters. Means Udgata and Upasthita Prachopita, these are one of the difficult meters in metrical science. In both Mahakavyas, he paid homage to Valmiki and Vyasa. Ashvaghosh pays tribute to Valmiki as being the Adi Kavi and Dhiman. As well as in the Buddha Charita, Ashvagosha shown great respect for Vyasa also. So the last point is depiction in Buddhist art. Both Mahakavyas means Saundarananda and Buddha Charit, we can see the scenes in the both kavyas in Buddhist art world over. The events of Buddha's life as described in the Buddha Charita can be observed in the Gandhara art, which includes scenes such as Siddhartha's marriage to Yashodhara, the bridal procession, and the plowing scene. Saundarananda is also prominent in Buddhist art and can be seen in more than 30 pieces in various locations such as Nagarjunikonda, Goli, Amravati, Ajanta, Swat, and Borobudur in Indonesia. In some instances, particularly in Ajanta and Borobudur, the artistic interpretation is based on Ashvagosha's version. This is panel in Goli. So this is the selected bibliography for works of Ashvagosha. So this is the general overview of Ashvagosha's work with modern research. There is full scope. I want to say that there is full scope of research in the subject of works of Ashvagosha. Whatever I told here, it is just Chanchu Pravesha in the poetic world of Ashvagosha. As a student of Sanskrit, we should deal with the manuscripts and must discover the unknown facts about Ashvagosha and many more ancient poets. Thank you.